In this video, we will be talking about weathering. Let's start by looking at a picture. The 12 Apostles is a collection of limestone pillars in Port Campbell National Park in Australia. About 20 years ago, it looked like this. But in 2005, one of these 50-meter tall rock pillars collapsed, leaving this. This happened very quickly. One day this rock pillar was there, and the next day it wasn't. Here's another rock formation called the London Arch, and it's in the same park. This picture's from 1973. Well, in 2009, this happened to it. One day it was there, and the next day it was gone. By contrast, take a look at this footprint. It's on the moon, and it was made in the lunar dust over 50 years ago during the first moon landing. Today, it looks like this. 100 years from now, it will look like this, and 1,000 years from now, it may still look like this. How can something as solid as this rock formation suddenly collapse? And yet, this footprint in the soft lunar soil might just stay like this for thousands and thousands of years. It all has to do with a phenomenon called weathering. Weathering is the breaking down of rocks to form sediments. Sediments are pieces of loose rock that can be transported to other places. There are two main types of weathering: physical weathering and chemical weathering. Physical weathering, also called mechanical weathering, is the breaking down of rock because of physical processes. When the rocks are broken down, the smaller pieces of rock are made of the same stuff that the original piece of rock was made of. In other words, the composition does not change. The minerals in the small rocks and sediments are the same as the minerals in the original rock. There are several ways that physical weathering can occur. One of these is through a process known as ice wedging. In this form of weathering, water seeps into cracks in a rock. When the water freezes, it expands, and this slowly pushes or wedges the rock apart. As the freeze-thaw cycle repeats over time, the rock eventually breaks into pieces. This picture shows a rock that's being broken up by ice wedging. Here's another example of ice wedging. Water has seeped into the cracks in this huge rock and has frozen. Over time, the freezing and thawing and freezing and thawing of the ice will weather these rocks and break them into smaller chunks. These chunks are made of the same minerals that the original rock was made of. Nothing new is being made, and this is why ice wedging is a type of physical weathering. Another type of physical weathering is weathering due to thermal expansion. When rocks are heated by the sun, they expand. When the temperatures fall, these rocks cool and contract. The cycling of heating and expanding and cooling and contracting causes the rock to break into chunks. This picture shows a rock with onion skin weathering. This is a type of thermal expansion weathering. Notice that these chunks are made of the same minerals that the original rock was made of. Nothing new has been made, and this is why thermal expansion is a type of physical weathering. Another type of physical weathering is biological weathering. In biological weathering, the roots of trees slowly push themselves into the cracks in rock, and as the roots grow, they push the rocks apart. Here are some examples of biological weathering. See how the tree roots are passing through the rock, cracking it. In this example, tree roots are breaking down the stone in this ancient temple. Animals can also cause physical weathering as they look for food or burrow holes into the ground. In biological weathering, the chunks of rock that are formed are made of the same minerals that the original rock was made of. Nothing new is made, and this is why biological weathering is a type of physical weathering. Another type of physical weathering is abrasion weathering. Abrasion means rubbing or scraping away. Rocks can scrape against other rocks, and when they do, they break them down. Abrasion can be caused by several different things. One of these is gravity. When gravity pulls rocks down the side of a hill, these rocks bump against each other and they break each other into smaller pieces. This picture was taken after an avalanche. During this avalanche, as gravity pulled rocks downhill, some rocks bumped into other rocks and they broke them apart. Abrasion can happen with water too. As water flows down rivers and streams, it pushes rocks along. These rocks scrape against other rocks and sometimes they break, but other times they are smoothed and rounded. You may have seen pebbles at the bottom of rivers that look like this. Waves crashing on the beach can cause a similar phenomenon. Another type of abrasion is wind abrasion. Wind blows sand and other sediments against rocks and gradually wears them away. Wind abrasion can weather rocks into some pretty amazing shapes. Glaciers can also weather rock as they move, breaking the rock down. You can see this in this diagram. As the glacier rubs against the rock, it breaks the rock into smaller chunks. In abrasion weathering, the chunks of rock are made from the same type of minerals that the original rock was made of, and this is why abrasion is a type of physical weathering. Human activities like digging and mining and blasting into rock also cause physical weathering. Okay, so we've just talked about physical weathering. Let's talk about the other type of weathering, chemical weathering. In chemical weathering, there is a chemical change that happens and something new is made. In other words, chemical reactions happen that change one type of mineral into a different type of mineral. There are several types of chemical weathering. One type of chemical weathering is oxidation or rusting. You have probably seen this in your everyday life when something has rusted. Oxidation happens because of chemical reactions between oxygen and iron metal, or the iron in rocks. A chemical compound called iron oxide is made, and this breaks down very easily. Iron oxide has a red-orange color. Copper and bronze can also react with oxygen to form a blue-green substance called verdigris. We see this a lot on statues. Chemical weathering can also happen through chemical reactions between rainwater and the minerals in the rock. This process is known as hydrolysis. The picture on the left shows a chunk of rock that has not been weathered, but the picture on the right shows the same type of rock after chemical weathering with water. Note how different these rock samples are. The rock on the right has undergone a chemical change. Chemical weathering can also occur through reactions with carbon dioxide. Often, this carbon dioxide is dissolved in raindrops, forming a weak acid. If this rain goes into the ground and hits a chunk of limestone, spectacular caves can be formed. Pollutants in the air like sulfur and nitrogen compounds, which result from the burning of fossil fuels, can also make rainwater acidic, causing acid rain. These statues are examples of rock that have been weathered by acid rain. Some plants, such as lichens and mosses, can produce weak acids. These acids can chemically react with the minerals in rock and slowly wear them away. Though this is a type of biological weathering, it's different from the type of physical weathering that we see with tree roots. This is because the acid produced by the lichens and mosses chemically reacts with the minerals in the rock and forms something new. There are several factors that can influence how much weathering happens and how fast it happens. One of these is the type of rock that is being weathered. Some rocks, like limestone, weather very easily. Other rocks, like quartz and granite, weather much more slowly. Another factor that affects weathering is climate. Ice wedging tends to happen in climates where there's a lot of freezing and thawing water. Areas that have a lot of wind may be prone to wind abrasion. Chemical weathering tends to occur faster in warm, wet climates, and this is because chemical reactions tend to proceed more quickly at higher temperature. Chemical weathering also tends to occur more quickly in wet, rainy climates because more water allows more chemical reactions. Warm, wet climates also tend to have more plant life, including mosses and lichens that produce acids that wear away rock. In summary, weathering is the breaking down of rock into smaller chunks or sediments. There are two main types of weathering: physical weathering and chemical weathering. Physical weathering involves weathering through physical means. This type of weathering is a physical change, and this means the broken pieces of rock are made of the same minerals that the original rock was made from. Types of physical weathering include ice wedging, thermal weathering, biological weathering, and abrasion by gravity, water, wind, or glaciers, and human activity. In chemical weathering, there is a chemical reaction, and minerals in a rock are changed into different types of minerals. Chemical weathering often happens through chemical reactions with water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, or other chemical compounds. Plants like lichens, which produce acid, can also cause chemical weathering in rocks. Factors like the type of rock and climate can also determine how quickly weathering will occur.